This is crazy. Even when it's unintentional, Stephanie White just gets blasted and exposed. This time by one Draymond Green. We got Sophie Cunningham. It's so much to break down.
Everybody's piling on Caitlin Clark right now. Two ugly losses, the cameras zoom in on her getting cooked on defense, and the whole internet already has its verdict. Caitlin Clark can't guard anybody.
And yes, everything is fine in Orange.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm saying.
You know what's not fine? Coach White needs to fucking pipe down.
What?
Ease up. Okay, we got the franchise. All right, so guess what? If she wants to come over to the bench and pout and scream and not play defense, she can. All right?
What?
You
See, that's the problem.
Stand down, you let her do whatever the hell she wants, and let's keep this thing moving.
But Draymond Green looked at that same tape and saw something completely different. And once you see what he's pointing at, you won't be able to unsee it, because the real problem in Indiana right now might not be Caitlin Clark at all. It might be the people standing right next to her.
We all know Stephanie White has been an abomination of a head coach, especially to start off this season. The Indiana Fever are sitting at 500 at 4-4. This is ridiculous. She's subbing Caitlin Clark out every 3 minutes, subbing her out the first 3.5 minutes in the first quarter, playing 11 different players in first quarters, all types of foolishness and nonsense. Yet alone, this weird switching 1 through 5 defense. That's an absolute joke. This is a professional league. Stephanie White has been a travesty. We got to get into what Draymond Green had to say.
Let's set the table. The Fever just dropped 2 in a row. First, a tight one to the Golden State Valkyries, then a brutal 16-point beatdown from the Portland Fire, a team playing in its very first season. And in that Portland game, Clark had a night to forget. 6 points. 1 made shot out of 7, in foul trouble the whole way. So yeah, the clips looked bad. Portland went right at her over and over, dragging her into one-on-one situations all night long. But here's the first thing that should make you stop and think. This wasn't a one-game thing. Clark has guarded more isolation plays than any other player in the entire league this season.
We all know that we've all been addressing, and we've shown film breakdowns of Stephanie White's horrendous defense. Okay, now do we have the greatest defenders in Caitlin Clark? No. In Kelsey Mitchell? No. Even Sophie Cunningham? No, she's not a great defender. But to sit there and switch 1 through 5 to play no help defense, it's an absolute joke. Now let's take a look at what Draymond Green had to say before we get to Sophie Cunningham.
Jalen Brunson living on an island with James Harden guarding. That's just not something you can let happen. This isn't just a coaching issue. When you're trying to compete at a championship level,
This applies to Caitlin Clark in the Stephanie White situation as well. Follow along now.
You can let happen. This isn't just a coaching issue. When you're trying to compete at a championship level, you must have guys that want to take on that challenge. I'm not switching at this point in the game. Let them set the first screen, don't switch. Let them set the second screen, don't switch. Now, as opposed to Jalen Brunson getting the switch with 19 seconds on the shot clock, 17 seconds on the shot clock, now he gets to switch with 6 or 7 seconds on the shot clock. Now you gotta go. Now our defense can react and we just end up in a rotation. But he's not just dicing us up. You got guys in there that don't really want that challenge. They don't want to fight through the screen and say, this is my matchup, I want to stop this guy. I don't understand it. Guys simply don't know how to win, don't want to do what it takes. I was baffled by this. I'm still baffled by it every night when I watch these guys accept switches and not really want to guard the guy. So
that applies directly to the Indiana Fever, more so with this joke of a game plan. And Sophie Cunningham revealing, oh, we only have one defense, and that's the switch 1 through 5. He's showing you can't do that. It's lazy, it's a joke, and you're gonna get destroyed that way, the way the Indiana Fever have.
Sit with that for a second. Out of everybody, she's the one teams keep hunting every single night. So the real question isn't why is Caitlin Clark stuck on an island. The real question is, why does she keep getting left there? And that's exactly where Draymond comes in. Draymond Green knows this story better than almost anyone alive because he lived the other side of it. For a decade in Golden State, his whole job was protecting Steph Curry, and Curry is one of the most hunted players in basketball history. Teams spent years trying to drag him into bad matchups and pick on him. So how often did you hear people call Steph Curry a defensive liability who was killing his team? Almost never. Why? because the Warriors built everything around shielding him.
Everybody going to come out and say, oh man, James Harden got annihilated. They're picking on him. They should pick on him. Why not? Absolutely pick on him. So all of a sudden, them threes that will fall late, they fall short. No matter how you want to slice it, it is not James Harden's job to guard Jalen Brunson one-on-one. It's not what he's paid to do. Some of those other guys who's just switching off, it is your job.
Shout out to Draymond Green. This applies directly to the Indiana Fever.
Draymond fought through the screens. Draymond took the tough matchup. The whole defense was designed so Steph could be Steph and never get left out to dry. That's not luck. That's how every great franchise treats its franchise player. You build the walls around your superstar. And Draymond has already said out loud what Indiana needs. Back in 2024, when teams were taking shots at Clark, he told the Fever to go invest in an enforcer fast.
We spoke about, we would get into, is the Kennedy Carter and Caitlin Clark situation. Number one, I saw she came out like, enforcer who? Talking about my tweet. There's no shot at you. I like the play. Like, it was a for sure bullshit play. Like, you just run up and chuck the girl. But I'm all for that. I'm not the guy that's gonna come out here and be like, you shouldn't do that. No. But my point is they should get an enforcer so that when you do that, somebody come club you. Because that's what should happen. Like, you don't get to just do something to Steph Curry. I'm sorry. I'll get thrown out 82 times. Like, you just don't get to, like, hit Steph. Like, that's not what we gonna do here. And by the way, Steph gonna stand up for him. Steph ain't no, I can't say the word I want to say, but ain't none of that in my brother blood. He gonna stand up for himself anyway.
He sees it. So look at Indiana and ask the obvious question. Where are Caitlin Clark's walls? But before you answer, there's one stat that flips this whole conversation upside down. Here's the part nobody pushing the Clark can't defend story wants you to know. The numbers don't even back it up. By one defensive rating, Clark sits a hair below average. Not the worst on her team. Not even close. And once you count what she does on offense, she's a team best plus 18 overall. Then there's this. When one outlet ranked the league's worst defenders, Clark wasn't in the top 10. She came in 14th. 14th. So this idea that she's some historic defensive disaster, it's a story. A loud, lazy, convenient story. And it sticks for one simple reason. Caitlin Clark drives clicks. Praise her or bury her, her name prints money. So the easy take wins every time. Meanwhile, the harder, truer take just sits there, ignored. The most hunted guard in the league is getting almost no help. And the people whose actual job is to scheme around her still haven't figured out how to protect their most important player. That's not on Caitlin. That's on the staff and the roster. And honestly, the wildest part of all of this is how she's handling it. Because Clark isn't blaming the scheme. She's not calling out teammates. After that Portland loss, she stood up and took it on the chin. Said she just needs to keep her defender in front and move her feet a little better. That's her taking the blame, while the people getting paid to build walls around her keep leaving the door wide open. So here's where I land. Caitlin Clark is not a perfect defender. Nobody's saying she is. But she's the most targeted player in the league, posting the best two-way numbers on her own team, and somehow she's the villain. Draymond sees it, the stats see it, and now you see it too. So what do you think? Is this really a Caitlin Clark problem, or is everybody just blaming the easiest name on the jersey? Drop it below. I want to hear it.
All right, you guys, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, shall we? The biggest news story in the WNBA, obviously, everybody is talking about Coach Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark kind of getting into it on the bench. I have now seen the discourse. I've seen and heard what many of people are saying about this exchange, and I do have some thoughts about it. I have some thoughts about the whole Indiana Fever situation right now.
Everything you thought about the Indiana Fever drama just got worse. From the bench to the front office, this franchise looks like it is in full panic mode when it comes to handling Caitlin Clark. You can see it in the games, the press conferences, and even the way the organization responds to criticism.
It looks like Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever front office and all that coaching staff are under tremendous heat. They are under fire right now from Fox News, USA Today. I mean, you name it, CBS, Yahoo, ESPN. They are in a lot of heat. And a lot of people now online are calling for an investigation on this coaching staff for potential abuse to Caitlin Clark.
Today, we're breaking down 3 things. First, the coaching decisions that keep killing momentum. Second, the front office controversy that has fans furious. And third, why more people are starting to talk about the unthinkable, a future where Caitlin Clark decides she has had enough.
OMG. Now, last week I told y'all, when footage was coming out of Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark being buddy-buddy on the sideline, them dabbing it up, laughing it up, I told y'all this was a PR stunt because everybody was questioning Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White relationship. Now, Stephanie White did an interview last week, and in the interview, she said her and Caitlin Clark are buddies. They like the best. It was on the Quarry Company little show, radio show.
Before we start, this is my opinion based on public games, interviews, and commentary. I am not inside the locker room. I am simply reacting to what fans, analysts, and the basketball world are seeing. Let's start with the game that lit the fuse. The Fever came out looking sharp. Caitlin was creating opportunities, Aaliyah Boston was dominating inside, and Indiana appeared to have control of the game. Then everything changed. The coaching staff pulled key players while Indiana still had momentum. Clark sat, Boston sat, and almost immediately the opponent went on a run that completely flipped the game.
And yes, everything is fine in Orange.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm saying.
You know what's not fine? Coach White needs to fucking pipe down.
What?
Ease up. Okay, we got the franchise. All right, so guess what? If she wants to come over to the bench and pout and scream and not play defense, she can. All right?
What?
You
See, that's the problem.
Stand down. You let her do whatever the hell she wants, and let's keep this thing moving.
That decision left fans stunned. You simply do not take both franchise cornerstones off the floor at the same time when they are driving everything that is working. Basic basketball strategy says you keep at least one of your stars on the court, especially when the other team is trying to make a push. Instead, Indiana rolled out lineups that struggled to score, struggled to defend, and watched its advantage disappear. The bigger problem is that this does not feel like a one-time mistake. Throughout the season, there have been stretches where Clark sits while the offense grinds to a halt. There have been games where Indiana seems determined to experiment with every possible lineup except the one that obviously works best around its generational point guard. Fans see it. Analysts see it. Even national commentators have started questioning whether these rotations make any sense at all.
I am freaking pissed right now. I am pissed off. Caitlin Clark, Stephanie White crashed out on Caitlin Clark on the bench and benched her throughout this game. That is what happened. We got footage of Stephanie White crashing out and benching Caitlin Clark. Stephanie White, who the hell you think you are? You was a bum. They ran your sorry ass out of Vanderbilt. They ran you out of there and fired your sorry ass. You was a bum. You haven't won nothing in the WNBA. You've been trying to hitch your wagon to being an assistant for a championship team. Your sorry ass haven't done nothing. Who the hell you think you are to be talking to Caitlin Clark like this?
When your best guard and your best big are constantly separated, when the pick and roll that should be the foundation of the offense barely appears, and when the team repeatedly loses momentum after substitutions, people are naturally going to ask questions. And that's where the real controversy begins, because the issues are no longer staying on the court. While fans are criticizing the coaching, the front office has found itself facing backlash of its own. Reports and screenshots have circulated online suggesting that team leadership has blocked or dismissed fans who question the organization's handling of Caitlin Clark and the team overall.
I mean, it's been absolute insanity. You got Caitlin Clark fans calling for an investigation upon this organization for potential abuse from the staff that is handling her. We saw what happened with Stephanie White, but we're going to go through a slew of these things, and then we're going to take a look at KC with Behind the Line as he dove into this, and he absolutely shredded the Indiana Fever for this situation. And it appears, man, people are not letting up. And it's been too many instances like this, okay? You got Brianne January going off on Caitlin Clark on the bench and all of this stuff. It's been nonstop, okay? This is just one instance. This is just one instance. You got this Brianne January situation. Then you had this situation here. Stephanie White pulling on her arm, tugging on her, and Caitlin Clark pulling her arm away. Right here. You know, it's just been a non-stop circus, and the people are calling for an investigation into this organization to see what the hell is actually going on, what is going on with these coaches, what's going on with all of it. And then you're gonna see here when I can't even remember this coach, she came and grabbed her, and people are just saying that this is abuse that is going on with Caitlin Clark. We watched her get grabbed up by a referee. We're watching Stephanie White pull her arm. We watched Brianne January go off on her on the bench. We obviously saw this interaction here. We saw this interaction with Stephanie White going off on her on the sideline and then throwing the clipboard. I mean, just it's been a lot. And I think it's over between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White.
Think about that for a second. You land the most talked about player in women's basketball. Attendance explodes, television ratings soar. The entire league benefits from the attention. Yet instead of embracing the passion of the fan base, the organization appears to be fighting with it. Whether every criticism is fair or not almost becomes irrelevant at that point. The perception is what matters. And the perception right now is that Indiana looks defensive. Blocking fans does not solve lineup issues. It does not improve player development. It does not create a better offensive system. What it does is create the impression that pressure is starting to get to the people making decisions. That pressure has only intensified because national media figures are now openly discussing the situation. Several commentators have argued that Caitlin Clark's biggest obstacle is not the opposing team. It is her own organization. They point to questionable substitutions, inconsistent offensive schemes, and a lack of commitment to building the system around the player who has transformed the franchise's visibility overnight. And once those conversations start, things can escalate quickly. That is where words like sabotage begin appearing online. Now, to be clear, sabotage is a serious accusation, but once fans adopt that narrative, every decision starts getting viewed through that lens. A strange substitution, a questionable play call, a game-ending possession that goes somewhere other than Clark, a tense moment on the sideline. Suddenly, none of those incidents are viewed independently anymore. Instead, they become pieces of a larger story that many fans believe is unfolding. Whether that story is accurate or not is almost beside the point, because perception becomes reality. And the reality for many fans right now is that the Fever do not seem fully prepared to handle a superstar whose influence extends far beyond basketball. Which brings us to the most dramatic possibility of all, the trade conversation. Not because there are reports suggesting it is imminent, not because Caitlin Clark has said anything publicly, but because fans are beginning to ask the question, how long should a generational player remain in a situation that appears chaotic if meaningful changes never happen? Around the league, there are organizations that would immediately build their entire identity around a player like Clark. Stable coaching staffs, clear offensive philosophies, unified leadership. That contrast is exactly why the speculation continues growing. Would a trade request be shocking? Absolutely. It would send shockwaves throughout the WNBA. It would damage Indiana's reputation and force every decision-maker in the organization to answer difficult questions. But at the same time, continuing down the current path carries its own risks. Eventually, frustration has a breaking point. So what needs to happen? First, the coaching staff needs to simplify things. Establish a clear rotation, keep one star on the floor at all times, build the offense around the Clark-Boston partnership, and make opponents prove they can stop it. Second, the front office needs to stop battling criticism and start addressing it. Fans do not expect perfection, they expect accountability. And finally, everyone inside the organization needs to understand how rare this opportunity truly is. Players like Caitlin Clark do not come along often. Very few athletes can transform ratings, attendance, media coverage, and league-wide interest almost overnight. That kind of opportunity is priceless. The question now is whether Indiana can take advantage of it before the pressure becomes too much. So what do you think? Are we simply watching a young team trying to figure things out under an intense spotlight? Or are we witnessing the early stages of a much bigger problem that could eventually reshape the future of both Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever? Let me know where you stand.
While there are many moments of frustration for the Indiana Fever in their 184 loss to Portland Fire Saturday night, the one that got the most attention involved the sideline exchange between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White, arguing on the bench during the break in the action, presumably over defense.
Hey, listen, I respect coaches like that, bro. When you can challenge your best player and your best player responds, maybe you're right. Let me lock in. The back and forth is not a bad thing to me, fellas. You know, it happens from time to time. And if you can't police your best player, bro, then it's always going to be a problem.
But the problem is, Joe, this is not isolated. It's every night. She doesn't play defense. I've been in Caitlin Clark's corner, but enough is enough now. I'm tired of her behavior. She's not holding up her end, and I love Stephanie White for this. It was a very similar situation where LeBron was trying to draw up something when Ty Lue first got the job, and Ty Lue said, I got this.
Gotta let them know who in charge.
Y'all say she got passion. Where is the passion on defense? If your coach can't coach you, you might as well just go ahead and get them up out of there.
Hands up, head shaking. And then she turned and walked away from her own coach on national television. That's what Caitlin Clark did Saturday night, and the entire basketball world saw it. One timeout, one blow up on the Indiana Fever bench, and suddenly everyone's asking the same thing. Is something broken in Indiana? Because this wasn't some quiet little disagreement.
So Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark had their argument, and as expected, the fallout from it is significantly more than it should be. The fallout from this is gone crazy, even though I'm not saying this is nothing, but it's not. It's between something, nothing, or everything. It's somewhere in between something and nothing. And I cannot stress this enough. People are like, oh, Caitlin Clark, she's going to demand out because of Stephanie White.
The cameras caught all of it. The pointing, the frustration, the moment Clark got out of her seat and stepped away. And what happened about 60 seconds later might tell you everything you need to know about where this team is heading.
My goodness, I'm pretty certain the dark side of the fandom grew greatly tonight. There is absolutely no excuse for what happened tonight. This team got outworked, out-hustled, out-coached. I don't ever want to hear Stephanie White and defensive guru ever put together again. They got absolutely worked by an expansion team on over-the-air free network television for the entire country to see. Congratulations, Indiana Fever. You have hired a coach that has regulated Caitlin Clark into what? The third best player on the team? A character actor? You're trying to turn her into a character actor? It's working.
Let's back up for a second. The Fever walked into Saturday night as 12-point favorites. 12 points against an expansion team playing its very first season. This was supposed to be a walk in the park. It was the opposite. The Portland Fire didn't just beat Indiana, they embarrassed them, 100-84. And the worst part? Caitlin Clark had one of the roughest nights of her entire career. 6 points, one made basket out of 7 tries. She missed every single three she put up. For the player who rewrote the record books in college, that's almost impossible to believe.
Clark came out once again with her hair on fire. Stephanie White benched her. What are we doing? By the way, expansion team officially has a better record than the Indiana Fever. What is there to talk about? I don't have one positive thing to show you guys tonight. Oh, Leah Boston had 18 points. Kelsey Mitchell had 17. Great. Stephanie White left them in there so they could stat pad. Gotcha. because there was no chance they were coming back in this game. No chance. It was far and away a wrap halfway through the third. Unbelievable.
But it wasn't only the shooting. Clark kept getting whistled for fouls, 3 of them before halftime. So she spent big stretches of the game stuck on the bench, watching, getting more and more frustrated. And the longer it went, the more you could feel something building. Then came the timeout that broke the internet. Second quarter, Indiana already in deep trouble. White pulls her group in close, and the body language tells the whole story. The coach is fired up. She's pointing right at Clark. She slaps her own knee to drive the point home. And Clark, she's not having it. She throws her hands in the air. She shakes her head. At one point, she stands all the way up and steps behind her coach, clearly done with the conversation.
And it's a clip of Coach Stephanie White getting into it with Caitlin Clark. She's on the bench. It seems like she's getting really heated with her players. Caitlin's on the bench. She gets heated as well, puts her hands up. It seems like they were talking about some sort of defensive scheme or something. Coach Stephanie White gets annoyed with this, gets Caitlin Clark out of there, Raven Johnson in. Now, this was a very frustrating game. So I can understand frustrations in the huddle. I can also understand moments where players and coaches get into it. And even the last time that these two got into it, I came on here and I told you guys, I was like, I actually don't think this is that big of a deal. I don't think it's that big of a deal because you have a fiery player, you have a fiery coach, like this is bound to happen. But now that this has happened twice in a row within 10 days of one another, like, yeah, maybe there is a little bit of concern of what's going on with the Indiana Fever.
Within hours, millions of people were watching that clip on a loop. And then White made her move. She pulled Clark out of the game and sent in a rookie. Think about that for a second. Your franchise player, the face of the entire league, benched right in the middle of the meltdown. That's when the fans completely lost it. People started calling for the coach to be fired on the spot.
If the WNBA/Indiana Fever media is not riding Stephanie White's ass, they're all officially joked. Take your credibility, build yourself a nice little pile, and light it on fire. If any creator tries to tell you, oh, it's one bad game. Nah. This, folks, is a trend. Stephanie White, your defensive guru status is burning in a fiery hell right before our eyes. Bro, what the hell is up with the sub timing? Why the hell is AB and CC sitting so long early? God only knows. Like I said, Caitlin Clark came out like her hair was on fire. Stephanie White pulled her, I believe, 3 minutes. 3 mother effing minutes into the game. And it was a wrap. It was a wrap.
The talk shows ran with it. The story was basically already written. Clark and White are at war. But that's not what either of them said next. 2 days later, Clark stepped up to the microphone and she shut the whole thing down. Her words, 2 competitive people who both badly want to win. She said moments like that happen all the time. Then she said the line that stopped everybody. I ride for Steph. Steph has my back more than anybody.
What is your reaction to maybe some of that screaming, whatever you want to call it?
I mean, first of all, 2 people being competitive, 2 people that really want to win. And, you know, I think a lot of those things happen all the time. And I know there's a camera on me and that's how it's going to be. But there's a lot of people out there in the media or on TV that they think they know a lot of things and they're just blatantly wrong about a lot of things. And I ride for Steph. I ride for these girls. Steph has my back more than anybody. So, you know, nobody in that locker room, in our locker room, or Steph or our coaching staff thought twice about it.
That's not exactly the sound of a locker room falling apart. And White backed her right up. She called it coaching, plain and simple. She said she loves Caitlin and that the 2 of them are more alike than they are different. Both stubborn, both competitive. Then she dropped the line a lot of people are still arguing about. She said, if this exact thing happened in men's sports, nobody would even blink.
I think what happened in that moment is I was challenging a player. You know, it's coaching. It's what it is. I don't often think it becomes an issue if you're watching it in men's sports most of the time. And my relationship with Caitlin is great. Like, I love Caitlin. I ride with her. Like, we have a great relationship. And I think that the narrative of people trying to make it something that it's not is just, taking sensationalism to try to get some clicks and all the other stuff. She wants to be coached. I want her to help me be a better coach. We're both competitive. We're both stubborn. We're more alike than different. Hopefully we continue to bring the best out of each other.
Even teammate Lexi Hull jumped in to say, yeah, there's frustration, but that's just part of the game.
Everybody had something to say over the weekend because of the huddle with Caitlin, Stephanie White. We've got Twitter just going out. Everybody's losing their mind. You were there. What happened?
Yeah, I think it's just there's frustration. I think we noticed they were trying to pick on Caitlin a little bit on defensive end. She was getting called for some fouls that, fouls aren't fun. She got in some foul trouble. Our team got into some foul trouble, and that's just all it was. I think that's part of the game. There's frustrations that rise and decisions have to be made. And ultimately, this wasn't something that carried on. This is in the moment, something that happened and not something that is talked about now in our locker room, talked about even later on in the game. That's just something that happened. And unfortunately, Caitlin's got a camera on her 24/7. And so you see every little thing, but this happens almost every day in women's basketball. So not something that we're worried about at all.
And the reporters who cover this team every single day, they shot the firing rumors all the way down. So here's what's really going on. This isn't a team ripping itself apart at the seams. This is a championship contender that just got punched in the mouth by an expansion team and absolutely hated how it felt. The blow-up wasn't betrayal, it was two intense competitors who can't stand losing badly, on the biggest stage possible. But here's where it gets interesting. Clark says it's nothing. White says it's nothing. The team says it's nothing. And yet, that video is still everywhere, and the fans are still split right down the middle. Some see two fierce competitors who'll be totally fine by next week. Others believe you don't scream at the best player in the world and bench her without a crack forming somewhere. The Fever sit at 4-4. The pressure is very real, and the next few games are going to tell us exactly which side was right. So what do you think? Was this just heat of the moment fire between two winners? Or is this the very first sign of something the Fever can't afford to ignore? Drop your take down below. I want to hear it.